The following is a presentation of 13ABC Action News. Now, your table is ready. Join 13ABC's Jeff Smith with the decision makers of Northwest Ohio and Southeast Michigan. This is the Roundtable.
And hi there, good afternoon. Thank you so much for spending some time with us here once again on this Sunday afternoon for the Roundtable program. As you know, as a fellow viewer or a good viewer here of the program, that we try again and again to bring you economic stories, impact here locally, Northwest Ohio, and also around the state of Ohio. And there was something that really grabbed my attention over the last couple of weeks, as I am kind of a news junkie and scanning the papers around the state. And there was an article in the Cincinnati Enquirer that brought to the forefront where the state of Ohio is right now in kind of a gold rush mentality. Not gold we're mining for right now here in the Buckeye State, but natural gas and even oil. We're going to get into some of this discussion here today on the Roundtable, but I want to show you real quick. Let's take a look at our first graphic, and I want to show you some of the headlines around the state and around the country, talking about what is happening here in Ohio when it comes to drilling. Fracking, a rush to riches, one of the headlines out there, and my guests will tell you how fracking has become one of those fun words that people like to play with. Ohio may need more natural gas pipelines, another headline around the state. And fracking in Ohio sparks real estate rebound, i.e. mortgages. So how does all this come to the forefront? I'm so happy to have with me this afternoon Tom Stewart. He is the Executive Vice President of the Ohio Oil and Gas Association here in the state of Ohio. Tom, welcome to you here on the Roundtable.
Happy to be here. Wow.
And also with us, Penny Seipel. She is the Vice President of Community Affairs for the Ohio Oil and Gas Association. Both of you making the trip from Columbus. Great to see you as well.
Thank you.
Let's get into the conversation a little bit. And as you look at those headlines, are they on point with what we're seeing right now, Tom? Is there a rush to riches?
Well, they're a little sensational, but people are kind of excited about the Utica play. What's really happening in the state of Ohio is that technology has once again transformed my industry, the exploration and production industry, and has opened up the code to a reservoir rock where we knew a lot of oil and gas came from. In fact, is a source rock for most of the oil and gas that we've produced in the state over 150 years. That technology has now come down to the point where we can go into these source rocks, unlock them, and may greatly expand the productivity of oil and gas in the state of Ohio.
As far as the state is concerned, we are seeing a lot of this activity over on the border of the Pennsylvania area, the eastern part of the state, where, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Utica Shale is located as well as the Marcellus Shale, is that correct?
You're going to find the Utica that is actually a formation that covers the great majority of the state of Ohio.
Okay.
But as it moves from east to west, it gets shallower. That presents other challenges as far as making it productive, and then gets thinner as it moves to the west. There's possibility that you will find Utica, Point Pleasant, shale-type development right here in the northwest quadrant of the state of Ohio, easily in Lucas County. And if you go across the border in Michigan, you will see similar type wells have been discovered and are producing up in Michigan. So it's just not eastern Ohio, though the geology does favor the eastern side of the state.
And there are companies that are jumping on this opportunity. Oklahoma City-based Chesapeake Energy, one of those companies that's looking to set up wells, and in conversations, understanding that some of these farmers that have land over in the eastern side of the state, they are seeing these companies come in, or even some of those prospectors, if you will, are coming in and setting up shop and paying big money. In fact, one article which I had right here out of the Cincinnati area said hundreds of farmers have become overnight millionaires. Really?
Yes. If you own a sizable tract of land that you've been farming in Harrison or Carroll, Guernsey, Noble counties, those areas along the eastern side of the state, and you have agreed to enter into a contract called an oil and gas lease with a producer, the price they pay for signing those leases, which is usually a bonus payment based upon an acre, have risen dramatically, as high as $5,000 an acre. So if you own a 100-acre farm, you're getting a check for $500,000.
No kidding, right on, just like that, pretty much.
Just like that.
Yeah. Penny, as we continue to see this discussion pick up, and as we said in the early conversations, that this is nothing new. This has been, is it just the technology is getting better and all of a sudden now it's coming to the forefront? Or is it we're in this economic state where these are the good stories to tell and this was needed at this time? Does that make sense?
I think the first part of your question, you wanted to talk about the technology. The technology has changed, and it has allowed this source rock to be more economic to produce. And so, yes, there have been advances in technology, the opportunity to go horizontal with the well. So that has definitely changed over the past 20 years. And then the economics, and the economics are there. I'm sorry, can you repeat the second portion?
Yeah, just from the standpoint, was this the right story at the right time as far as the state of Ohio is concerned? When you talk about finding deposits like this, but we also find out these deposits have always been there, but all of a sudden, to the forefront has come this word fracking and these wells being drilled. I mean, we'll get more into fracking in just a second, but was this the right thing at the right time?
Absolutely. I think we're coming out of a recession here in Ohio, and this is a great opportunity for the state. We are talking about tens of thousands. There's a study out there that talks about the potential of over 200,000 jobs by the year 2015. Lots of tax dollars for the state. So I think that this could be a real game changer for the state and really help with our economic situation.
If I'm a student of history at all, Tom, and as we see the lower points of our economy here in the United States, and we had the boom of the gold rush, and now are we seeing that low point in the economy and the boom of the oil rush?
Again, we have to keep.
Is that why the Keystone Pipeline was such a huge, and continues to be, you think, a huge point of discussion?
Well, Keystone Pipeline is based upon a different type of technology, opening up very shallow, what they call tar sands up in Canada.
Correct.
That at current oil prices, that type of technology becomes very economic. And in fact, Canada would be a world leader in oil reserves if you count those reserves into the equation on a world market. The key is getting that product down to refineries here in the United States, which is what Keystone was all about.
Okay.
What's happened in the state of Ohio is we've taken a reservoir that we always knew had the possibility, but for which the technology did not exist to open up that possibility. That exists now. The key is horizontal lateral drilling, which many times exposes the reservoir rock to the wellbore. That opens up possibilities that you couldn't do with vertical drilling. Then coupling that with the ability to do very sophisticated well stimulation, now you've got yourself big-time oil and gas.
And you said wells have always been stimulated.
Oh,
I mean, that practice, the fracking practice is nothing new, something maybe the media has jumped on because of the word.
There's several characteristics you need to make a reservoir rock yield oil and gas if oil and gas is trapped there. You have to have porosity, which is space in the rock where oil and gas is trapped. And then you have to have permeability, the ability of fluids to move through a rock, connecting the spaces. Most oil and gas reservoirs have great porosity, they do in Ohio, but poor permeability. So you have to make those connections happen. The way they did it in the old days is they dropped nitroglycerin down a well. Now this is 100 years ago when my grandfather was in the business. Then in the 1950s, Halliburton invented this process called hydraulic fracturing, which is the process of applying hydraulic pressure, because fluid doesn't compress, against a rock, and at a certain pressure, the rock will part. And you create a drainage ditch back into the formation, similar to horizontal drilling, where you many times expose the reservoir rock face to the wellbore. Now you're taking wells that would not produce on their own and make them produce prolifically. And we've been doing that in the state of Ohio since 1952. There's been over 80,000 wells hydraulically fractured in the state of Ohio. Since that time, over 1.2 million wells have been hydraulically fractured in the United States. About 35,000 wells are hydraulically fractured every year. And the bottom line is that not once, the people that are opposed to this process, not once can they make a direct correlation between groundwater contamination and the act of hydraulically fracturing an oil and gas reservoir.
Or the earthquakes that were being...
Totally unrelated to the earthquakes. The earthquakes issue up in the Trumbull-Kearney area is related to underground injection control wells, in which a singular well encountered a geologic anomaly, a slip fault block down into the basement rocks. It was ready to fail anyways. They lubricated and it slipped and they had a 4.0.
Penny, let's talk a little bit about the Kasich administration and what we have seen over the last couple of months as far as Senate Bill 315 going through the process of trying to figure out, there are always going to be checks and balances with anything as far as the government is concerned. I don't think we're breaking any new ground saying that. But are there too many checks? Are there too many balances at this point? Or is the industry kind of leveled out?
I think that after the enactment of Senate Bill 315, you can see that Ohio has some of the most stringent regulations regarding oil and gas in the entire nation.
Too much so?
I think that we're very pleased with where the legislation ended up. We worked through all of the ideas that were presented, and we attempted to make them as the best that we possibly could. I think we're very comfortable with where Senate Bill 315.
This administration is interested in this process, though. It seems that way. Yes, Tom?
Well, I think the Kasich administration wants to do the right thing for the state of Ohio, and it's been clear since they took office that they had concerns about regulatory gaps that they perceive may exist in the regulatory structure. I think Ohio, before the Kasich administration came in, had one of the finer regulatory structures out there, but they didn't necessarily agree with that, and so they tried to close the gap with 315. 315 is a success if you look at where the bill ended up. We are not entirely happy. The opposition to oil and gas is not entirely happy, which means that it's probably
They've done something right.
Yeah, it means it's probably a success.
Governor Kasich has said he wants the state's income tax to go down in anticipation of this big surge of tax dollars from oil. I mean, from drilling for oil. Is that legitimate? Is that possible? To be able to do something like that, to have so much in the coffers from this industry?
There's this debate going on now between the Kasich administration, the industry, and the legislature over the severance tax. The severance tax has always existed. In fact, it was doubled in the last General Assembly under Governor Strickland. But it's always gone pursuant to law. It's always been dedicated to support the oil and gas regulatory program at the DNR.
And this tax is levied against?
Oil and gas production that's lifted to the surface. So it's a volumetric calculation based upon what you bring to the surface. We believe that not one industry ought to be asked to bear the burden to reduce the personal income tax across the board. That if that's a good idea, and we think it's a good idea to reduce the personal income tax, we applaud Governor Kasich for looking for that goal.
Is it kind of that mentality we saw with the casinos, all the money that the state thought that it was going to make off of that?
Different issue. I mean, casinos provide entertainment. We provide value, the basic building block for industry and for people's success in this country. Casinos provide entertainment. And the first thing that the governor did when he came into office was force through a new casino bill in which he essentially made them redo their deal. Now he's coming to the oil and gas industry and saying, oh, we need you to ante up and bear this burden to reduce the income tax. What we're saying is, don't ask the one industry that's bringing economic opportunity to the state to bear that burden. It'd be better to take these dollars and invest them back into the ground to create the economic possibility of flow from it. And studies show that if we're allowed to do what we hope to do with the Utica Shale, we will raise the tax burden from about $23 million contribution from this industry to over $1 billion under the current tax structure.
So Penny, let's talk a little bit about, I know people who are listening to this and they're like, well, they're talking about the eastern side of the state a lot. What is the flow, if you'll let me use that word, as far as Northwest Ohio is concerned, and what could be the potential here in this area as far as drilling, as far as really, I guess, bringing something to the plate?
You know, what is happening right now is that we're seeing money flow through the economy directly in eastern Ohio. People in eastern Ohio are paying off their farms, they're buying new equipment, they're buying new cars. There's a Jeep plant here in the Toledo area, and so that's a direct economic impact that can be seen in all areas of this state. We're going to see money flow through the economy throughout all sectors of Ohio.
How soon do we think we could potentially start to see that transition?
It's happening now. Driving up here, both Penny and I noticed a billboard on driving up from Columbus to Toledo of a
Tony Pacos?
No, not that. But it was a manufacturer that manufactures compression worldwide, and the billboard was begging people to come and take jobs at this at this manufacturing plant making these compressors. I believe it's in Knox County. So they're casting a net all across Ohio, begging people to come to fill these jobs because the demand for their product based on oil and gas needs is growing exponentially now.
Has there been so much negative, I guess, lopped in with the process of fracking because it's change? There's been from the current administration, the Obama administration, this all of the above mentality, and they've even made statements. We're an all of the above energy policy where they're looking at solar, they're looking at wind, which solar and wind have, you know, been two industries that have really come to the forefront here locally. Once again, probably the media's fault on that, but
Well, we can't blame you for everything.
no,
you
well, you'd be surprised.
Look, you will never find us coming out and attacking solar or wind or renewables. I prefer to call them supplemental energy because America needs all the energy it can get because energy drives the economy of this country. It's the basic building block. You must have it. So you need all these forms of energy. Now we have this new opportunity, oil and gas. This country has transformed itself in terms of dependency and how we thought about dependencies. We are growing for the first time our crude oil production, which is driving crude oil prices down in the United States when compared to world oil prices. We have created so much natural gas in this economy here in the United States that natural gas is trading at a steep, severe discount. Frankly, in terms of tracking the commodity almost at historical lows, which is saving Ohioans billions in heating costs and saving Ohio industries billions in feedstock costs.
I want to get into more of that conversation when we come back. Stay with us here on the Roundtable. We'll not only talk about natural gas costs and what it could mean for you there at home, but also some of the schools around the state are deciding to kind of embrace an education based on drilling. Stay with us.